In this demo, we're going to look at scroll effects and generally how they work. I've started with a regular page here using fixed width layout. Let me go to my page properties. You can see fixed width, and I just have the default. To begin with, to really observe and to apply scroll effects, we need quite a long page, so the first thing I'm going to do is make this page very high. So instead of 500, I'm going to change that to 3000 pixels for a minimum height. And then I'll click OK. Alright, so now I have a lot of page to work with and to practice that scroll. So I already have 3 text elements that I put on the page, or just simply text right now. And one says, the one over here says scroll down and to the right. So let me demonstrate how I can create that effect, if you will. We start, of course, by highlighting the object, and then we go to scroll effects. Now, inside of the scroll effects panel, there are 4 subcategories. We're going to work with the first one here right now called motion. To start, I do need to check the box motion. And let me explain these 3 sort of areas. Initial motion, this point here where it triggers the final motion, and then finally the final motion. Now if we look over at the diagram, we have what looks like a T at the top. That is this middle point. And the way this works basically is you see the space from the top to this line. That determines when it triggers the final motion. So if I move this, you can see that I'm moving it here. It's going to say 84 pixels from the top. So if I scroll all the way up right now with the settings set the way they are, it actually wouldn't scroll at all, because initial motion is set to 0. Let me demonstrate that. Okay, see how that's locked into place there? I think it was 84 pixels if I'm not mistaken. That is using the scroll effects to actually lock something into place. So let me go back here and just show you that again. Simple rule for that, for locking into place, is that initial motion and final motion are all set to 0. Now, the other thing about scroll effects is that, I don't know if I said this, so I'll say it now, it will only work on a fixed width layout. Okay, so if I want to change this 84 pixels, I can change it manually here, and you can see the little bar changing on screen, or I can of course just go in and organically grab it, and I can see a readout telling me how many pixels it is from the top of the page. And that's actually the top of the page. This is considered the margin here. This outer blue line is the page line. So when I'm scrolling and this hits the top of the browser, it initiates the final motion. Anything before that is actually the initial motion. So let's set it to scroll with the page. I'll actually bring it down here a bit more. And to set it to scroll with the page, it works on speed. So 1 is actual speed. So if I change vertical motion, because I can also use horizontal motion, which we'll try in some of the other 2. But right now I'm just going to set it to vertical, up, move upwards, at the same speed as the browser. If I wanted to go faster than the browser speed, I would make it a number bigger than 1, such as 1.5, which would be 1.5 times the speed of the browser. If I want to slow it down, it would be 0. Let's say 0.5 for half speed. Alright, so I'm going to set it at actual speed of 1 right now. And for my final motion, I want it to scroll down and to the right. So I'll use the down motion, and I'll say scroll down at the same speed as the browser, 1, and we'll also go to the right. So the right one was already selected, so we'll set that to a 1 rather than a 0. So initial motion, scroll with the same rate as the page is scrolling. When we go up 113 pixels, trigger the final motion. So let's just try that now. Okay, so originally it was locked, but now we've set it to 1. Okay, so I'm going up, I'm going up. When I hit that 113, kaboom. So if I go back, when you see that it starts to animate to the lower right, that's the 113 pixel mark from the top of the browser to the top of the page. And if I scroll all the way down, there's an invisible line here that determines when it hits that invisible line, the final motion is triggered. So we have two groups of motions, initial and final. Initial is what happens while I'm scrolling before I hit that bar. And then after I hit the bar, I can change the direction and the speed of the selected object. So let's just fool around with the other two here. If I want it to be triggered at the same time, I'll just, first of all, check off motion. I'll change this to 113. I believe that's what it was. I can go back and check here. Yes, it was. Now, again, I want this to maybe scroll up and to the left slower. So we'll start it at actual speed, right? And then we'll trigger the new speed. So slower, we'll go 0.5. And to the left, we'll just change the direction here to the left. And we'll also make that 0.5. Okay, so what should happen is when it scrolls up at actual speed, when it hits that trigger of 113 pixels, it will start to move upwards and to the left at a slower rate than this one, for example. So let's give that a try. Okay, here we go. And I went a little faster so you could appreciate the speed change. But you'll notice the one on the left is going down faster than the one on the middle is going up. Okay, so let's just apply some different motions now to the last block here. And maybe we'll trigger this one a little bit later. So we'll start here and we'll just pull this trigger mark down even further. So this one will pretty well react last. Let me just click here. That's going to be second. And actually we'll change this so that this one responds first. And then this one responds second, and this one takes longer. They're all going to take a bit longer if I'm set to actual speed, which is 1. And then for my final motion, I said scroll up and to the left faster. So again, now we'll go say 1.2, and we'll switch this to the left, maybe 1.5. And a little trial and error is going to take place here. You're going to try it and determine if the speed works for you or not. But I'm just going to save this right now. And we'll check that out in the browser. Okay, so here we go, scrolling. Trigger, trigger, trigger. You know what, the last one I think I'm going to make go down and to the left, just to really bring it home here. So I'll actually change the text as well. So for this one, let me just go to my selection tool here. We'll say down and to the left. Okay, try that out. Okay, and because I set it to higher than 1, it's actually going faster, of course, than the other one. So you can always imagine the potential of what we have here. I'm going to show you one more thing. It has to do with, that locking down that we saw at the beginning, but I want to emphasize that a bit more. So what I'll do is I'll just create a rectangular shape here. Let's say it's supposed to be a menu. I'll just put it down here, and we'll fill that with a black. Okay, so pretend that's my navigation menu. Maybe it starts in the middle of the page here. And I don't want it to move sideways on the initial, but I do want it to move up at the same rate of speed as the browser. So my up is 1. And then, to make it stick to the top, final motion just has to be set 0, 0. So when this, oh, sorry, that's not all. This bar also has to be set flush with the top. So that means that when this hits the top, this line, this object will not go any higher than the top of the browser. So two things actually, final motion 0, 0, and the target line, if you will, needs to be flush with the top. So let's give that a try now. Alright, here we go. Things are moving, I'm going, and boom, that's stuck to the top. So that's how you can stick a menu to the top if you want to have it animate before it's in place. Alright, so there's 3 different things going 3 different ways. Well, actually 4 counting the menu. But the 4th thing actually sticks to a designated spot, which in this case happens to be the top of the browser window. and it's a very practical thing to do if you're using navigation menu in such a way. So those are some of the basic principles of using the motion scroll effect, and in another lesson we'll learn about these other 3 types of effects. So I'd like you to try this and make sure that you can create that in a page.